All right, today we're here with none other than Audley Harrison, Olympic gold medalist, former heavyweight boxer, and we're just here to get his views on the heavyweight landscape at the moment. So, looking back throughout your career, you fought Deontay Wilder, you felt his power firsthand. If he eventually gets in the ring with Anthony Joshua, how do you see that fight panning out?
Yeah, Joshua Wilder was my last fight. It ended up being my retirement fight, and he was a big puncher. I also had him in training camp 2 years before that when I was training for David Price. I had him in camp, Malik Scott and Joe Hanks. So big puncher with the right hand, tall. All these modern heavyweights, the Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilders, everybody's tall now. You know, I was the big tall guy in my time. Deontay Wilder's got a dangerous right hand. He's very explosive, and just like mentally, even though he's lost to Fury, and he seems like he's got a rejuvenation of fire. So right now we're not seeing that in Joshua, in terms of just like his spirit, and sometimes that's what you need in the fight. You know, that confidence that he had, that swagger that he had. In terms of the momentum, right now you'd have to go with Wilder, because Deontay's trying to find himself. You know, I think Malik Scott is in a good place with Deontay, so they have something that they're building on. Obviously now, you know, Joshua tried Diaz, and now he's moved trainers again. Obviously with a great trainer, but it's going to take time for them to gel and for the trainer to implement the stuff that he's working on. So I think right now, if they fight, it would be a very exciting fight, but I'd probably go with Joshua, but you definitely can't count AJ out. He's always in great shape. Style-wise, you know, if he's coming forward in this fight and he doesn't back up as much, you've got to come forward, but obviously you've got a guy throwing big right hands at you. So it's a tough assignment for Joshua, but it's definitely one that if he just find that fire, have a great training camp, he's definitely going to be in the fight. You can't rule him out, but I'd say Wilder would start as the favourite.
The epic one.
Yeah.
Looking back on your career, say a prime Audley Harrison, how do you see yourself faring amongst the current heavyweight landscape?
You know, my prime, when you talk about like 2004, right? If you look back, I was saying, if you look back at what, because you got to remember, from my first fight, I'd done it like I was, even though I wasn't a world champion, I'd done it like I was a world champion. From the trainers that I had in my camp, from the private training camps that I had, from what I was learning from the sparring partners that I was bringing in, it was like high level. You know, so the stuff that I was learning, then when I went to America, the stuff that I was learning, so at 14-0, 15-0, the way I was fighting on the outside, fighting on the inside, was like beautiful. When I won my first title, junior version of it, the WBF title, the stuff that I was doing on the inside and the outside, no one's going to stop me, you know. And so coming my prime, because then I was unbeaten. I was the future of the heavyweight division,
right? And
I lost my contract with the BBC, and you may as well say the world title went from there. Because after that, when I came back, now I'm never going to work for these promoters. I'm signing with these promoters that I said I'll never work with, and I never got my mojo back. So even though you saw me coming back and I fought, it wasn't never the same, you know. But a prime Audley Harrison, I would have gone for anybody. I would have gone for anybody, because I was there. I was like licking my lips of the opportunity of fighting Vladimir Klitschko.
Yeah,
that was my goal. I am gonna. And I looked at his style. He lost to Corey Saunders. Like early on in his fight, he got knocked. He was a southpaw, South African southpaw, and I was like, oh my god, he's gonna be so perfect for me in 2006, 2000. I was just, it was all geared for me, you know. But my thing was, I wanted to do it on my own, A-Force Promotions, you know, under my banner.
Right.
And, you know, that's why it capitulated, and that's the people like, yeah, okay. But the stuff that I was doing, so like when I'm looking at me now, this is why I get like very frustrated looking at the fights now.
Yeah.
Because of my tutelage.
Putting yourself in that.
I had Phil Torrance with me. Phil Torrance and Eddie Futz were together 40 years, and their tutelage was never 100 years. So it's like the history of boxing, the science of boxing, especially heavyweights. And then from Phil Torrance I went to Buddy McGirt. It's like what I have in my head. Then I was my own promoter, manager, working with, you know, I actually just United present. But I learned the whole game. I learned the whole game, from matchmaking, managing, promoting, and training, fighting. So I have all of that in my head. You know, I need to give it to somebody. Like, so what I could do with a fighter, like looking at Joy Joyce, looking at Dubois, looking at Okolie, looking at Joshua, just looking at them and what they're doing incorrect. You know, from my background, it's crazy. When I lost to Chris Eubank, when I lost to Danny Williams in my first fight, Chris Eubank Senior came and found me. I was in a fancy hotel in the West End. He came and found me, got my number. I didn't even know Chris Eubank Senior person. So I got my number. He said, "Oh, I want to talk to you," because you know my Danny Williams one was so bad. That fight was so bad for me. He just wanted to come and fight me, and beat me, and just find out what the hell happened there, you know? And he was like, "Boy, I know you like your trade. You know, you're living in silk pajamas now, probably. So it's hard for you to be motivated. So you've earned money and you're living a good life." But who is that guy? You know? And he's talking about his warrior code, and it was just a great conversation. I'll never forget that talk. Like, he came out of his own way and reached out to me and just like gave me some tips. And I took that into my rematch with Danny Williams. I went to Big Bear, and you saw what happened in the rematch. I almost destroyed it. Exactly, you know, that's like I primed that version, so that you talk about a prime Audley. That's the prime Danny Audley. Williams 2. That night I would have beaten anybody. Didn't matter who I was facing. That night you saw the best of Audley Harrison, and I would have destroyed anybody on that night. Yeah, that was your peak. That was my pinnacle. I was locked in, and whoever I was fighting, because originally it was Matt Skelton, and he switched to Danny. So you go back and watch Audley Harrison 2006 fight Danny Williams 2, and you'll see like the best version of me. And it was like, wow, you know, and that was just. That was the prime me, and I was ready for anybody. So it's a shame. That was 2006. So I was ready then to go on and not be stopped. And then my next fight, I lose to Michael Sprott, and then it's all over. You know. But that fight there I signed the contract because now I'm tied to Frank Warren, and that's he has me for my whole career. And it's kind of like, so it's like bittersweet because now I've just won that fight, and I haven't just give up control. Signed to the man that I didn't want to. I said I'm never going to side with. So now it's kind of like it was a climax and an anti-climax. It was tough on me mentally, but that's the way it went, you know. And I never was able to reach the heights again, and kind of just went into no man's land. I got injured, had a bad car crash in 2007. I kind of was just off in the wilderness till I bumped into Eddie in a poker tour in Vegas.
Was that where it was? Yeah, random.
It was in Vegas, yeah. Okay. And Eddie said, "Hey, Audley, what are you doing? Come back," and we done the prize fighter. Okay,
switching tact a bit there. In terms of like fighting people that you might be friends with, does that make you feel some kind of way? Because I saw that Tyson Fury recently said he'd rather give up the belt than fight his friend Joe Parker. That's something that surprised you, because obviously there's the balance, isn't there, between professionalism and friendship. Like
in boxing, it's always hard to fight people you know, people that you're connected with. It's very hard to get mad about them, but you've got to be professional and do the job, you know. But I had it with Julius Francis in my 15th fight, when I came back to England. And you know, the Beeb wanted to start controlling my opponents more. I had a guy who was unbeaten from Europe. They said, nobody knows him. We don't want to box him. At least Julius Francis, we know. I'm like, Julius is going to be a stinking fight. He's going to be horrible because I know him. I'm fucking partying with him. I boxed him in the amateurs. That was the only saving grace. Okay, I can beat him in a rematch and get avenge that loss to him from the amateurs. But it's a pointless fight because we know each other, and I can't get out for the fight. So we boxed him, we've done 12 rounds, and it was horrible in terms of like for a spectacle. Okay, I got 12 rounds out of it, boxing, but it was very hard to get the anger, fire for somebody that you know you've been out with. So I understand what Tyson Fury is saying, but ultimately you still got to go in and do the job.
You can't be giving up the belt, can you? You still got to go out there and do a job.
He's not going to give up the job. So ultimately you'll fight your guy, but it's just hard to get motivated for that fight.
Right. If Joshua isn't the next opponent for Deontay Wilder, do you see someone out there that would be a good matchup for him? Like they say, styles make fights, but who would be your pick for Wilder's next fight if it's not Joshua?
Yeah, I mean, the Joshua fight is the fight that we want to see.
That's the one.
That's the one. outside of that, obviously Joe Parker just had a good ring. You know, names like that. I know he's not going to go lower than that. It's hard to find. You know, Dylan White probably would be in a good somebody to consider. Because he needs a kind of marking time fight if he ain't fighting, or even Usyk. Try and get the Usyk fight.
Yeah.
You know, this fight I would gun for Usyk. He's had his one warm-up fight, got rid of the guy, so he's ready to go back into the big stages. Obviously, doesn't really make sense him fighting Fury again. I know he's mentioned it.
Yeah, surely
so
not
really
again.
Joshua, Joe Parker, Dylan White, that kind of level. You know, there's some up-and-coming guys coming in America. Doesn't really make sense him fighting those guys.
Yeah.
You know? He needs a big name for him to come back to. So I would say a Joe Parker or a Dylan White would make sense for him.
But you personally, you turned pro in 2001. You won the British Heavyweight Championship, European Heavyweight Championship.
Didn't win the British.
Didn't win the British.
I can't claim that. I
Claim that.
I
Won the
couldn't
European.
get the British title. Every heavyweight was signed by somebody else.
Oh,
I couldn't get a British title.
that's what happened.
Yeah.
But like, you challenged for the world heavyweight title. Like, do you have any regrets how your career panned out? Are you happy looking back on it? What do you do?
Ultimately, like I said, I would have loved to win a world title, a legitimate version of a world title. I won the WBF, a legitimate version of a world title under my own auspices, you know, A-Force.
Yeah.
And that's like a regret that I didn't get that done. But when I look back on my career, I know in the end I done it my way. I fought the system, which I always wanted to do, and the system didn't let me go through the way I wanted to go through. And it's okay, so I kind of got rejected, like being my own promoter, coming up, like doing it on my own. And that kind of hurts me, like when I think about it, but it's for the right reasons, you know. Unfortunately, I left the country as a result. You know, I live in America now.
Yeah.
2004, when I lost that beef deal, I left the country. I couldn't be here.
Really?
You know, mentally, I couldn't deal with it.
Fair.
And so, but all good. When I look back now, all good. You know, I didn't get. I feel like I could have dominated. Could have been the next, you know, beating Vladimir Klitschko, but not to be, you know. So all that knowledge I have and all that experience that I have, I've got to give it to somebody. Heavyweights.
The next generation.
I have it all here.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not begging you. You got to understand the knowledge here.
Yeah.
I have something that you need, something that you want to.
Something that money can't buy.
Yeah. Let me audit your style. Let me audit your last performance. Any one of you. Joshua, Dubois, let me just sit with me and we'll watch your tape together.
Analyze.
Lawrence Okoye, any of you.
Joe Joyce,
any of you. Just sit down with me and you'll see how advanced it is. Just watch your last fight together.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'll just pick up on some stuff. Then we can talk it through in the gym, maybe work it through. That's my offer to you. And I'm guarantee you.
Better than that.
Be a good time of your investment. I know it'd be a great time of mine, but a great time on your investment.